butt hurts, which is not the way most travel videos ever start, but when your travel video is on Athens, Greece, and you spent the last 4 or 5 hours walking up the hills and down the hills and up the stairs and down the stairs in this incredibly ancient and hilly city, you will absolutely understand why my butt hurts is the single best way that anybody could ever start a travel video on Athens, Greece. So welcome to Athens. I don't know how many times I've been to Athens, 4 or 5, we'll call it 6 and pretend I'm lying for one of those. But this is an amazing city just to walk around. One of the things that I find really sort of fascinating about Athens is sort of the diversity of the neighborhoods here. A lot of people stick to the touristy areas around, Plaka, which is like the area behind the Acropolis here. But when you walk around, there's so many neighborhoods that are so varied. Like, I've walked through a bunch of neighborhoods around here, and there are parts of it that remind me of Mumbai, India. Parts of it remind me of Midtown Manhattan. Parts of it are very much like the Levels neighborhood in Hong Kong. So to me, Athens kind of feels like every city I've ever been to in a way, simply because the diversity is so broad. So let's take a walk around some of these neighborhoods and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to come at this Athens travel video from a different perspective, from a perspective you're probably not expecting. There's a million travel videos on YouTube that talk about the Acropolis and the Parthenon and all the tourist places you should see in Athens, and those are great videos. There's nothing wrong with that. It's one of the primary reasons people come to Athens is because they want to see Greek history come alive. Ancient Greece. They want to see these old ruins that have been around for 1,000 years or more, and it's a extremely good reason to come to Athens. I mean, wandering in those sites is pretty darn incredible. But I ask myself the question wherever I am: could I live here? That's the perspective I take when I'm traveling. And when I travel these days, I do ask myself that question: can I live here? And I don't mean that permanently. I mean in terms of, could I live here for a few years? Could I live here for a few months? I like living in different places simply because I love the excitement of it all. I don't want to wake up every single day knowing what my routine is going to be. I don't want to wake up every single day and knowing the route I'm going to take to work or the route I'm going to take to go to the supermarket or whatever. I like, the excitement of waking up and being in a different place that is still fresh and new to me, even after a couple of years or even a couple of months. So that's how I come at cities. That's how I come at travel. Can I live here? And that's the question I'm asking as I go through Athens. Can I live here? Alright, so I pulled into Caffeine Dealer. This is the Kukaki neighborhood. It is 10-15 minute walk south of the Acropolis. It's still considered probably a bit of the tourist district, maybe. Doesn't feel very touristy. In fact, it kind of feels like some of the best parts of Hong Kong, the livable parts of Hong Kong, with maybe West Hollywood or West LA, or sort of the Hollywood that is not celebrity Hollywood. It's like that part of LA and the best of Hong Kong got together and had a little Greek love child, and it became Kukaki. It looks like a place where you would be a first-time homeowner, let's say. It looks nice. It's a really cool kind of place. It's got a nice vibe to it. It's got a upbeat vibe to it. It's I'm not going to say it's upscale. It's sort of, let's call it mid-range. But it's the kind of place where I can definitely see families living here for sure. I don't know that it is a digitally nomady kind of district, simply because it feels a little quiet. There's certainly a lot of pedestrian areas where you're going to have the bars and cafes, particularly cafes, not a whole lot of bars, mainly cafes, and some shopping, but it doesn't feel digitally nomad. It feels like a couple would live here, like a family would absolutely live here. I could definitely live here if I had a family. It wouldn't. I do have a family. I shouldn't say if. I do have a family. I could live here with my family probably. I don't know if it's the kind of place my wife would want to live, but I would be happy enough living here because it's close enough to the Plaka area, so you're going to get to some really nice dining options there, and it's got easy access to metros, and so you can get around Athens pretty easily. The apartment stock looks pretty decent. I would bet that in terms of rent, the apartments around here probably go anywhere from $900 to $1,500 or euros a month. Complete wild guess. I might be off by a factor of 2 or 3 for all I know. This is just a random guess based upon what it looks like and what I know rents generally go for in Athens. So again, it's just a guess. But it's a good neighborhood, Kukaki. I would be happy here. I think a lot of people would be happy in this particular neighborhood because it's safe. It looks nice. You're not going to walk around and feel like you're in a bad part of Athens. You're going to feel like you're in a family district. So that's my hot take on Kukaki. All right, the Plaka neighborhood. This is the neighborhood in Athens. It's the oldest neighborhood in Athens. It's been around for eons. It is a highly touristed area. This is where the tourists always come because it's really close to the Acropolis. It's got all the shopping here, all the cute little quaint streets that are lined with bougainvillea and stuff. It's got really nice restaurants and cafes. The shopping is everything from low-end tourist junk all the way up to really nice sort of handmade, clothing from local designers and stuff. In fact, I stopped and bought my wife a blouse and some pants I know she'll love. So it's a really nice area. I chose a very different kind of street to talk about Plaka. So as you can see behind me, that is not the world's prettiest building. It's for sale, and it looks like it has gone through hell and back. It looks like it has been here since basically ancient Greece. But at the same time, you go right over here and you have this really nice modern, sort of house that has built up here on this street, and I have a feeling that that is exactly what that particular property is going to look like when somebody buys it. And that's Plaka kind of in a nutshell, in that it has some really nice places. Like, I would absolutely live here. There's a lot of places I've seen in Plaka I would absolutely want to live. If I had the cash, I would love to buy something like that and turn it into something like that. But by and large, I think Plaka it's a place you would want to live, particularly if you're a digital nomad, particularly if you are a couple. It's going to be probably expensive here because it is such a popular area. And what's really interesting is, while most of Plaka, or much of Plaka I should say, is a lot of touristy kind of stuff, like I said, when you get off even one or two streets off of the main tourist drag, you get some really nice areas, some really nice buildings, some really nice houses that are really quiet, like surprisingly quiet, because the tourist side can be, quite loud with all the tourists wandering through. There's music coming out of the restaurants, the cafes, the bars, even some of the clothing stores have music playing out. But you get a block or two off and it becomes really kind of quiet, like this street. Like, I am probably 50 or 60 yards from a main street, and it's really quiet around here. For me, Plaka is a really cool place. I could absolutely live here. I just don't know that I would, want to live here during the high season, let's call it, because I have a suspicion it's going to be really challenging walking through this area when all the tourists are around, and it's going to get really loud and really packed and really crowded. But other than that, Plaka is really nice. It is definitely a neighborhood that I could see living in as a digital nomad, as a couple, maybe even as a family, depending on how noisy it gets in the summery months. But other than that, really great neighborhood. Athens loves stairs. I don't. Someone famous once said that when the facts change, I change my mind, which is why I have now recorded this video 3 times for this particular segment. And it's because I'm wandering through the Monastiraki neighborhood this morning, and it's a huge conundrum. I spent the first part of the morning wandering around a part of the neighborhood, and my first impression was, this is a hellhole. I just don't like it at all. It's not the kind of place I would want to live. It's the kind of place that if a real estate agent drove me through and said, hey, what do you think of this property, I'd have to go back home and basically scrub my eyeballs just to get rid of the sight of that particular part of Monastiraki. So my original video was really sort of negative on the neighborhood, and with good reason. And then I sort of had breakfast, I thought about it, I started wandering around some more, and suddenly I stumbled upon some parts of Monastiraki that actually were really, really quite nice, in a Boho chic artsy way. Areas that are like tagged with a lot of graffiti, but in a cool way, in a young hip kind of way. There's a segment of the area that is basically a bunch of sort of urban designers, let's call it, that have shops here. Parts of it are just absolutely atrocious. You'll walk along a street, like a main street that goes through the neighborhood, and the quality of clothing and the quality of like backpacks for sale and shoes and things like that are a quality that comes out of the cardboard boxes that come from China that have all the rigidity of a jellyfish. They get wet and they basically melt and have no strength whatsoever. It's a low quality. But then, like I said, there's this other sort of boho chic-y kind of area that's really kind of cool, actually. Nice shops, nice restaurants, nice cafes I would go to. There are some places in there that clearly would be really cool to live, actually, if you are sort of younger. If you are a digital nomad or you're an expat couple. Clearly not a place for expat families, I don't think. But that said, it's nice. It's got the Varvakios market, which is sort of where the Athenians go for their shopping for fresh fish and nuts and fruits and spices and things like that, meats. It's a touristy place. Monastiraki itself is kind of touristy for sure. Not as much as say Plaka, but definitely a touristy place. And you have the Monastiraki flea market, which I got to tell you is honestly not worth the effort as far as I'm concerned. This is just selling a bunch of useless tourist knick-knack for the most part. But as a neighborhood, it's definitely a hit or miss neighborhood. Monastiraki would not be probably on my list for a place that I would want to live. It's just too hit or miss. So I stocked some baklava in Monastiraki, and I'm making yet another video of Monastiraki. And it's because this place really is that much of a head scratcher for me. But the more you walk around, you're like, it kind of grows on you. I kind of like this place. And just sort of sitting here, I was thinking, am I being unfair to Monastiraki? And to a degree, no, I'm not. There are parts where I don't know anybody who would want to live there. But then, like I said, there are other parts, that these pedestrian walkways, and there's some really nice houses around here, nice apartments, I should say. There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of vibrancy around here. Once you get away from the crummy, sort of low-end shopping, along the pedestrian walkways, there's some nice shopping along there, and clearly some nice cafes and restaurants, and they're beginning to fill up. So, I just wanted to take a moment and say, while a great deal of Monastiraki is a monstrosity, another significant part of Monastiraki is a pretty darn nice place. I think the challenge would be finding the right place to live, where you're in that sweet spot, where you have a great place to live and you're close enough to the kind of pedestrian walkways and shops and restaurants and whatnot that's going to keep you happy. Because once you sort of get outside of that area, it falls off pretty quickly around here. But that said, there are some really, really nice places in Monastiraki. It's just a real conundrum. A wee beverage. I have found a little outdoor alfresco cafe in the Kolonaki neighborhood. This is a really, really nice neighborhood, posh neighborhood. I was surprised by the amount of embassies and consulates I saw when I was walking around this neighborhood. And when you see embassies and consulates, you're in a nice neighborhood. You can also tell how posh it is, oddly enough, by the lack of, I'll call it doggy postcards that you find on sidewalks. I have found in my travels that based on the amount of dog messages that are left on the sidewalk, you really can gauge the quality of a neighborhood that you're in. That's not 100% universal, but it's close enough to universal that I actually pay attention to it when I am wandering around cities and thinking, is this a place I could live? So, to me, when people are picking up after the dogs, it says a lot about the quality of that neighborhood. Now, beyond, dog postcards, this is a really, really nice neighborhood, It's filled with shops, it's filled with, restaurants and cafes. At 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as I'm walking around, there are still people waiting in line to get into some of these cafes. I'm talking about 6, 7, 8 people waiting to get in, and the outside, the sidewalk, the alfresco area is all packed. The interior looks like it's pretty well packed, and there are people waiting to get in. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine before I came to Athens, and she was telling me that this is the neighborhood that she goes to for brunch with her friends, for dinners with her friends, going to local bars and clubs with her friends. So this is a really upscale, nice neighborhood to head to. It's not touristy. There are clearly tourists in the area, but it is not nearly the kind of tourist concentration that you find in other parts of Athens, where people are looking for all of the ruins and whatnot. But really, really quite nice neighborhood. A very leafy neighborhood. I'm walking around all these little streets, and they are very well covered by tree shade on most of these streets. And the buildings themselves are quite nice. They're buildings I would be happy to live in. I don't know how much they cost. By and large, Athens is a relatively cheap European city to live in, particularly when it comes to real estate. So I think Athens is overall a very affordable place. Kolonaki, I don't know how much more expensive it is. I haven't seen prices exactly in Kolonaki. I would imagine they're a bit higher simply because it's such a really nice district. But when you walk around here, it's clearly a place that I think anybody would be happy to live. Particularly families, particularly professional couples. I can definitely see professional couples living here because you walk out and everything you want is really close at hand, but you're far enough outside the tourist zone that it is not sort of obnoxious tourists everywhere, and it is not the tour buses all over backing up traffic. It's just sort of an upscale, relatively busy neighborhood. You can probably hear the traffic whizzing by on this 2-lane road I'm on. But once you get off this particular road, the rest of the neighborhood is actually quite quiet. It's really nice and pleasant. The sounds you hear most often are birds chirping, not traffic and motorcycles and scooters and whatnot. So, if I were to move to Athens, this is clearly a neighborhood that I would be interested in looking around to seeing if I could find something that is affordable, So that's my take on Kolonaki. So, as Supertramp once sang, I took the long way home from the Kukaki neighborhood, and I screwed up in reverse and found an absolutely amazing neighborhood. I'm not exactly certain where I am. I think I'm on the border of Kampa, or the northern reaches of Kampa, and Thissio, I think it is. Probably pronouncing that wrong. But this is absolutely an amazing neighborhood. Great place where I could see living as a family without question. Be a great place to live as a family because the streets are, as you can see behind me, like really nice apartment buildings. The streets are lined with all kinds of really nice upscale looking dining establishments. There's a park nearby. Up the hill over here you get this amazing view of the Acropolis, so you're really close to sort of everything that is central to Athens. But you're in this really, really cool district. I don't even know how to describe it. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's like the best parts of New York City. Really quiet here. There's not a lot of traffic. Clearly not a big tourist area, but just like this amazing place with such cool restaurants, such cool shops, really nice looking apartments and I guess houses and whatnot. And I'm looking ahead right now, and it is the Acropolis right in front of me, packed all the tourists. When I get up there, I'll pop the camera around so you can see it. But this is a place where I would absolutely want to live with a family, a couple who has income. I have a feeling this is probably a more expensive area because it just looks incredibly nice. I don't know that you want to live here as a digital nomad, let's say, because it's not quite in the heart of everything. It's sort of just off the heart of everything. But for a couple or for a family, absolutely a fantastic place. So this is absolutely a place I would want to consider living if I were to move to Athens. Come back to the topic at hand. What I originally started out this video as with a question, can I live in Athens? And I've spent the last few days, wandering around. I've clocked somewhere close to 53 kilometers walking around the city. I don't know how many miles that is. It's more than a breadbasket full. It's a lot of miles. And to answer that question, I would say absolutely 100% without question can do. I love the city. It's a great city. There is so much to love about Athens, and there is so little to dislike about Athens. No city's perfect. I mean, clearly every city has its flaws. Athens can be crowded, Athens can be loud, Athens can be obnoxious. But beyond those minor negatives, or what are minor negatives to me, I think it's an incredible city. If I were to analyze the neighborhoods I wandered through, and let's be clear, I didn't see all the neighborhoods Athens has to offer. I mean, there are absolutely a phenomenal number of neighborhoods, and I clearly don't have time to go see every neighborhood. I went through neighborhoods that I thought would appeal to a large segment of people. In the center of the city kind of stuff, because if you're an expat and you're a digital nomad, or you're a couple that's moving here, or you're moving here with a family, I get the impression from my travels around the world and talking to expats and nomads and whatnot, that they tend to want to be generally centrally located. I'm trying to gauge sort of the center of the city roughly. What's in the core that I think people would gravitate towards. If I were to pick one, or if I were to pick a couple, let's say, if I were to pick one as a family or as a couple that has a decent amount of money, probably, because again, I don't know what the rental prices are, I would without question choose the last neighborhood I found on complete accident, the Campa / Thissio neighborhood. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Thessaloniki is a TH, so I'm going to say this is Thissio. I think it's a fantastic neighborhood. I really like that neighborhood a lot. It is quiet, but it is centrally located. It seems to me that it is a collection of houses / apartments that look really nice. You would be happy to call that place home. There's a lot of restaurants around there. There's a lot of nightlife, it looks like. There's cafes, there's places to go shop. To me, that's a fantastic neighborhood. If I were to pick a second neighborhood, if I didn't want to be in Thissio, if I wanted to be somewhere that was more posh, I would absolutely pick Kolonaki. That is a really nice neighborhood. It's posh. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how posh it is. It has far more options for shopping and dining than the Thissio / Campa neighborhood has. It's a little farther out. It's probably 20-minute walk to sort of the Acropolis area. But it is, without question, a phenomenally beautiful neighborhood. The other neighborhoods I saw, there are pockets of niceness, let's call it, but there's also a lot of meh. It's like I'm not swayed one way or other to say, oh, this is a great neighborhood, I can't wait to show my friends where I live. It's just not, a lot of those are just not like that. I think the Kolonaki neighborhood is like that, and I think the Campa Thissio neighborhood is like that. I would say Kukaki is pretty good too. Like, I wouldn't mind living in Kukaki, depending on costs of all this stuff. I mean, if I had to pick a place based on costs and the others were, out of my range, let's say, Kukaki would be up there because I think it's a nice place to be as a digital nomad, as a couple, as a family, because it too is centrally located. It is clearly not the same level of poshness that you have in the other neighborhoods. So to me, it's probably third on the list. Monastiraki is just way too hit or miss. There are some areas I really like that are the artsy district, where they have a lot of the designers are making their own clothes and whatnot, and artists are doing this, that, and the other, and there's the tattoo guys there, and it feels very sort of boho chic kind of place. But other parts of it are toilet bowl chic. They're just not. It's just not a place I would want to call home. So that is my take on Athens after several days of wandering these streets. I would tell you that if you are thinking about Athens as a place to potentially be as a digital nomad, as a family or a couple that wants to live abroad, get out of the U.S. for a while, or Canada or Australia or wherever you live, and you want to live in Europe, live a European lifestyle, I think Athens is a great place for it because it's really affordable. It's incredibly beautiful. You've got the sea right here. You've got all the islands that are easy to get to, and the neighborhoods here. There are some neighborhoods, like I said, that are just phenomenal. So for me, that's my take on Athens.